The rain came down in sheets that November evening, turning the city streets into rivers of neon reflections and forgotten dreams. I sat in my car at the intersection of 5th and Madison, watching a woman collapse against a storefront window, her body folding like paper in the wind. People walked past her, business suits with expensive umbrellas, teenagers glued to their phones, couples laughing under shared canopies. Nobody stopped. Nobody even slowed down. And I almost didn't either. Almost. But something in the way her hand pressed against the glass, fingers splayed like she was reaching for something invisible, made me pull over. I didn't know then that this moment would crack open my carefully constructed life and show me what it means to actually be human. Her name was Sarah, though I wouldn't learn that until much later. When I first approached her, she looked up at me with eyes that had seen too much, the kind of eyes that belong to old soldiers or emergency room nurses, not to a woman who couldn't have been more than 35. She was drenched, her thin jacket plastered to her frame, and she was shaking so violently I thought she might be having a seizure. "I'm fine," she said before I could ask, her voice barely audible over the rain. "Please, I'm fine." But she wasn't fine. Nobody sits in a downpour in November and calls themselves fine. I crouched down beside her, feeling the cold water seep through my jeans, and for the first time in years, I didn't think about my dry cleaning bill or my dinner reservation or the meeting I was already late for. "Let me help you," I said. She laughed then, a sound so hollow it made my chest ache. "Nobody helps. Not really." I should have been offended, but I wasn't. Because she was right. I'd walked past hundreds of people just like her. I'd perfected the art of looking away, of convincing myself that someone else would help, that I was too busy, too important, too separate from their struggles. I'd become an expert at not seeing. "Well, I'm nobody then," I told her. "And I'm helping." That's how it started, with a stranger's refusal to be fine and my sudden inability to walk away. I got her into my car, turned the heat up high, and drove her to the nearest coffee shop. She didn't want to go at first, kept insisting she'd be okay, that she just needed a minute. But when I mentioned hot coffee and somewhere dry to sit, she nodded, and I caught something in her expression that looked like relief mixed with disbelief. The coffee shop was one of those generic chains that dot every corner in America, all faux leather and ambient music designed to make you forget you're just another transaction. But that night, it felt like sanctuary. We sat in the back corner, and I watched Sarah wrap her hands around a steaming mug, her whole body angled toward its warmth like a plant toward sunlight. "You don't have to stay," she said, not meeting my eyes. "I know. Most people would have left by now. I'm not most people," though even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. I was exactly like most people. I was just having a temporary moment of conscience. Sarah started talking then, slowly at first, like someone testing ice on a frozen lake. She told me about her daughter, Emma, who was 7 and staying with a friend because Sarah had lost their apartment 3 weeks ago. She told me about the factory job she'd lost when the plant moved overseas, about the temp work that dried up, about the eviction notice and the landlord who wouldn't listen. She told me about sleeping in her car until someone broke the window and stole everything, about the shelter that was full, about the system that was supposed to help but kept telling her to wait, to fill out forms, to come back tomorrow. "Tomorrow," she said, her voice breaking. "There's always a tomorrow. But Emma asks me every night when we can go home, and I don't know what to tell her anymore. I don't know how to explain that home is just gone." I sat there, my expensive coffee untouched, feeling my privilege like a weight around my neck. I had 2 spare bedrooms in my condo. I had savings accounts and retirement plans and investments. I complained about traffic and slow Wi-Fi while this woman was trying to figure out where her daughter would sleep. What if I could help? The words came out before I'd fully thought them through. Sarah looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw the fear in her eyes. Not hope, fear. Because hope is dangerous when you've been disappointed too many times. How? I didn't have an answer. Not a good one. But I pulled out my phone and started making calls. I called my sister who worked in social services. I called my friend Marcus who managed affordable housing units. I called my old college roommate who ran a nonprofit. And somewhere between the 5th and 6th call, something shifted. People started saying yes. Resources started appearing. Doors started opening. By midnight, Sarah had an appointment with a housing counselor, a lead on a job, and a promise of emergency assistance. It wasn't everything. It wasn't even close to everything, but it was something. It was a start. "Why are you doing this?" Sarah asked as I drove her to the friend's house where Emma was waiting. I thought about that question. Really thought about it. Why was I doing this? Was it guilt, obligation, some performative gesture to make myself feel better? "Because you asked for nothing," I finally said. "Everyone else in my life wants something from me. My boss wants more hours. My parents want grandkids. My friends want me to join their causes and sign their petitions and show up to their events. But you just wanted to be left alone in the rain. And that's exactly why you shouldn't be." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Her teacher told me last week that Emma drew a picture of our family. She drew me and her, standing in front of a house. But the house didn't have a door. Just windows and walls, no way in or out. When the teacher asked her about it, Emma said, 'That's where we're going to live when Mommy finds it.' I had to pull over because my eyes were blurring with tears. I'd spent 32 years on this planet thinking I understood how the world worked, thinking I had problems, thinking I knew what mattered. But I didn't know anything. I didn't know what it was like to look at your child and have no answer. To watch them draw a house with no door because even their imagination couldn't make room for hope. 3 months later, I stood in Sarah's new apartment, modest, affordable, but clean and safe and hers. Emma ran through the rooms, her laughter bouncing off walls that finally had doors. Sarah had started her new job the week before, and while things weren't perfect, they were possible. That's all anyone really needs, possibility. "I don't know how to thank you," Sarah said, watching her daughter play. But here's what I'd learned in those 3 months. She didn't need to thank me. I needed to thank her. Because she'd given me something invaluable. She'd shown me what it means to really see people, to stop walking past suffering like it's just part of the scenery, to understand that kindness isn't about grand gestures but about showing up when showing up is hard. I'd also learned that she wasn't unique. The more I looked, the more I saw them, people just trying to hold it together, one crisis away from catastrophe, invisible to a society that had perfected the art of not seeing. And I'd learned that helping didn't make me special, it made me human. Finally, actually human. We'd started something, Sarah and I, along with the dozen others who'd joined the effort. A network of people who'd decided to see each other, to catch each other when the fall came. Because the fall always comes, for all of us eventually. The only question is whether anyone will be there to break it. Emma ran up to us then, threw her arms around her mother's legs, and said, "Mommy, our house has doors." So many doors. Sarah's eyes met mine over her daughter's head, and in them I saw something I'd been searching for my entire life without knowing it: connection. Real, messy, complicated, beautiful human connection. That rainy November evening, I thought I was saving someone. But the truth is, Sarah saved me. She saved me from a life of looking away, from the comfortable numbness of self-absorption, from the poverty of a heart that had forgotten how to truly give. She reminded me that we're all just one bad break from needing help, and that our humanity isn't measured by what we accumulate but by what we give away. Now, when I drive through the city at night, I see them, the people pressed against windows, the ones asking for nothing, the ones everyone walks past. And I stop. Not always, not every time, because I'm still learning, still failing, still human. But I try, I see, I show up, because in the end, that's all any of us can do. Show up for each other. Build houses with doors. Create space for possibility. And remember that every person we pass has a name, a story, a child who draws pictures of home. Her name was Sarah, and she taught me that the most revolutionary act in our disconnected world is simple, terrifying, beautiful kindness. The kind that gets your jeans wet in the rain. The kind that disrupts your dinner plans. The kind that cracks you open and reminds you that beneath all our carefully constructed differences, we're all just trying to find our way home. And sometimes, if we're lucky, we get to help each other find the door.